This $30 bottle just crushed a $90 bottle in a blind taste. It is time to stop wasting money on overhyped bottles that underdeliver. And here's what's crazy. I have identified 7 bourbons that are under 50 bucks that consistently outperform the most sought after bourbons on the market. The bourbon world has a dirty little secret that no one wants to talk about. In many cases, the price tag has almost nothing to do with what's in the bottle. Marketing teams bet that you'll judge quality based on the hit to your wallet, not the flavor in your glass. And most of the time, they're right. What if you can drink better bourbon and spend less? I think that's where the magic happens. Those hidden gems that punch way above their weight class. The smarter play isn't chasing allocations or waiting in line. It's grabbing those bottles that everyone continues to overlook. Maybe because it's too readily available, it's not in a fancy bottle, or maybe it's so inexpensive no one could consider it ever being good. They know that knowledge beats hype every day of the week. And that's what we're gonna do today. Here are 7 bottles that prove great bourbon exists at every price point. Okay, first up at 27 bucks is Wild Turkey 101. And I can hear it now. That is the most overplayed, easy answer. And honestly, it is. It is the easiest answer for a reason. Wild Turkey 101 is the classic bourbon at 101 proof that delivers everything you need for 27 bucks. And it tastes amazing. It's gonna come in between 6 and 8 years old. I think it comes in at 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. Beyond that, you're gonna find it almost everywhere at a price point that is almost impossible to find nowadays. I know that most people believe Buffalo Trace is a smarter play at this price point, but I don't. And I'm not hating on Buffalo Trace, I think it's a good product. But Wild Turkey at 101 outcompetes Buffalo Trace in almost every blind I see. It's because it has that proof point at 101, it has a little more age, has a deeper, richer flavor profile that's able to compete when they're batting above their weight class. And here's the kicker, like if you have this on your shelf, and you need to mix a drink, or you're trying to make some old fashions, or you're trying to do something with friends, you don't have to stress it. It's a inexpensive, budget-friendly whiskey that you can go pick up another bottle tomorrow. So Wild Turkey 101, I know it's overplayed. I know everyone puts it on their list, but there's a reason. It's a remarkable choice when you're looking to find a whiskey that has flavor at a good price point. And look, if you want something a little bit interesting, they have the Wild Turkey 8-year. That used to be the age statement for Wild Turkey, so I get it. A little gimmicky here, but bottom line is it's really good. It really is. I think it's 44 bucks to 50 bucks. So if you want to give it a shot, I think there's no harm, no foul there. But you can still go with the regular Wild Turkey 101, and it's not a miss. Okay, next up, and I'm gonna warn you, it is another Wild Turkey product, but I promise you, this isn't a Wild Turkey show. I will move on, but it kind of went hand in hand. So I figured I'd do them back to back, and then we'll move on to the rest of the awesome bottles I have lined up over here. So next up is Russels 10-year. And I have had you all blow up the comments with Russels 10-year, and I can't go over every bottle in every video, but you're right. Russels 10-year is a amazing value. At 10 years guaranteed, I think it comes in at 90 proof. It has number 4 alligator char. It comes in with those classic Russels and Wild Turkey notes. The vanilla, the cola, it has rich oak, and then it has, to me, has a little bit of orange, like zest or something, just a little bit of orange. And I think it comes in at 40 bucks. It is really hard to find a 10-year age statement at 40 bucks that tastes great. And this does all of that. And you can find it anywhere. I think Eagle Rare used to be a really good value at its MSRP price point, but finding it, hard. 2, I think the MSRP has increased a little bit. And if you do find it, a lot of times it's at secondary. So if you're looking for a good bourbon with an age statement of 10 years at a lower proof, Russels 10-year. You'll be able to find it. You'll enjoy it if you like the Russels flavor profile. And I just don't think it misses. It's very, very consistent. So I'll stop the Wild Turkey show. Okay, next up is Bardstown. And I'm going to be very, very honest with you. And by the way, this is the Bardstown Origin Series white label. We'll talk about that, but I'm really going to talk about the Origin Series in its entirety. And I'll be honest with you that I am an absolute fanboy.
I love lamp. Do you really love the lamp, or are you just saying it because you saw it?
I love lamp. I love lamp.
If you hear me talking about Bardstown, it's because I really like them. You don't pay me. You didn't send me this bottle. It's nothing like that. I just want this to be a very transparent. So you can be like, oh, well, Corey just likes Bardstown, and you can take it with a grain of salt. But here's the honest truth. Bardstown puts out a remarkably good product at a really good value. They started as a place that was sourcing their whiskey. They were doing contract distilling. They still do contract distilling at scale, but they were blending some of the most remarkable whiskeys, in my opinion, early on when they were doing their Fusion and their Discovery series. And many of you have probably tried like the Discovery 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are very, very, very good blends. They know what they're doing. The master distiller is fantastic. So I got to know them a little early on. I got to try this whiskey probably when it was 4 or 5 years old out of the barrel. They waited until almost, I think it was 6 years before they released their own whiskey. They were really careful not to go early to market with something that they didn't believe in. So they waited until the whiskey was ready, and then they just pushed it out recently, a year or two ago. And it delivered. It is a really good whiskey at $49. The rye used to be a little more expensive, and I think they've actually come back to all being around $49. This one comes in at 96 proof. It is their High-Rye whiskey. It is a really, really classic flavor profile. I did a video a while back where I described this as a really good whiskey to do if you're trying to introduce someone to whiskey. I actually had someone the other day ask me how they can practice nosing and smelling whiskey because they're really struggling to pull out notes. And I thought this was a really good bottle to do that as well. That's Bardstown. They have their Origin series. They have 4 bottles. It is their High-Rye, their 100 proof, their wheat, and their rye. This is the High-Rye at 96 proof, which is my absolute favorite of the lineup. And I recommend it to almost anyone that wants to know a good whiskey that they can find at a good price. So this is probably one of my favorite whiskeys on my shelf, and I don't have to hunt it and I don't have to overpay. With that said, let's move on to the next one. And that is one you all should know, or at least have heard of. And that's Old Grandad 114. This is Jim Beam's High-Rye Mashville. It is a super, super good value. I just said super 2 times, so that's weird. But regardless, it's a really good value at a higher proof point. So for those of you that are looking for a little bit of a higher proof point, or you're new to whiskey and you're trying to transition to whiskey that has a higher proof point, Old Grandad at $35 is a steal. It's been a staple in the whiskey and bourbon community for many, many years. And it's one I hear all the time people referring to, and for good reason. So if you're looking for a bourbon that is packing a punch at a really good price point, and I like High-Rye whiskey and bourbon, so it is Jim Beam's High-Rye bourbon. And so if you're into that, Old Grandad's probably going to be a really, really good choice for you. And I think you can pretty much find it anywhere. If you can't, let me know, but I've never been in a position where I couldn't get my hands on an Old Grandad 114. There was a small period of time during COVID where it got a little weird. Maybe they stopped producing it. But I went to the store today and it was sitting on the bottom shelf. Pretty easy to find. So go ahead and pick one of these up if you have not had it before, and let me know your thoughts. Next up is one of my absolute favorites right now, and that is Green River Foolproof. And really, it's just Green River in its entirety, but Green River Foolproof at 117 proof packs a ton of flavor. A lot of people call it Stag Light. It does punch a little bit lower on the proof point than Stag, but it is full flavor. It's at $45. You can find it. I went to the Virginia ABC store and it was right there on the shelf. I wanted to see if it was available. Definitely available in this area. And from what I hear, it's available in most locations. And so you have a higher proof cask strength whiskey that has remarkable flavor from a really good distillery. It was recently bought by Bardstown, and we actually lost Green River to Prohibition, and it had this awesome revival recently, and they've been putting out really awesome whiskey. And with Bardstown in the mix now, they are continuing to do that. They're still off on their own in Owensboro, Kentucky, doing their fantastic stuff. So it's a little bit harder to get out and see them, but if you get the chance, go to Green River's distillery. You'll have a really good experience learning about what they do out there. Their DSPKY is 10, so when it comes to the historical nature of Green River, they were one of the original distilleries in America at 10, right? So yes, they did disappear and come back, so they did have some time off, but Green River knows what they're doing. They've got a great team there, and you're going to really not miss when it comes to value at purchasing any of their lineup, whether it's their rye, their standard lineup, their wheated bourbon. I wanted to put that out there. I think this is one of the new emerging best values in the market, and I wanted to make sure this was high up on the list. So with that, this next one, we're going to move into the wheated territory, because a lot of talk when it comes to bourbon happens to be around those Pappies and those Wellers. And newer to the scene is Penelope Weeded. And Penelope's doing a lot right now. It's almost hard to keep up with what they're doing, but this one kind of caught my eye. There was a lot of talk about it, whether or not it was a Weller Special Reserve killer, and a lot of people seem to think that it was. So I wanted to give it a shot. I got it a while back, and I'm not gonna lie, it is a really good whiskey at $30 or $39 or something like that. I'll have to look it up, but it is a really inexpensive bourbon, a wheated bourbon. And when I poured it next to Weller Special Reserve, held its own. And it's everywhere. Everywhere I go, I see this bottle. I know it's different everywhere, but I have to imagine Penelope's not throttling the release of this. They're not doing really small batches, so I think it's starting to get out everywhere. Let me know in the comments if it's not, but I do believe it's pretty readily available and they're a really good price. So Penelope Weeded is one I would highly recommend if you're interested in Special Reserve from Weller, if you're interested in those weeders and you want something that's a little bit more available and a little bit easier on the wallet, then Penelope Weeded bourbon is going to be a fantastic option for you. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments once you actually try it, because this might be a new go-to for me. I might not have a need for Weller. I've never had a need for Weller Special Reserve, if I'm being honest, but so I actually enjoy this a lot better, but it's going to kind of be complementary to my Maker's lineup. I think it's really fitting well into my weeded profile that I enjoy. I think Penelope did a good job and knocked it out of the park with that. So moving on from that, another bottle that I put on the list, a little hesitant to put it on the list, but I said, you know, all of these I have found to be extremely available and a very, very, very good price point. So I wanted to bring another bottle that I find to be enjoyable, but a little bit harder to find. So with that, I'm gonna bring in the 1792 Bottle and Bond. And at 100 proof, this whiskey, for whatever reason, is one of my favorite expressions from 1792. And I love their Foolproof. I've had a lot of their other stuff, but their Bottle and Bond, every time I get a bottle, it tastes fantastic. So it's, for whatever reason, the way they blend it and that proof point works really well for the 1792 Mashville. It's a 75, I think it's 75% corn, 15% rye, and 10% malted barley, if I'm not mistaken. And it obviously is 100 proof. And so I just really enjoy the 1792 Bottle and Bond. I think it offers a really fantastic flavor profile for Barton. It's a little bit more banana forward. So it's a little bit different than what we've been trying here today or what we've been talking about here today. So I think it's a good complementary bottle at a sub 50 price point for the list that we have today. I went to the Virginia ABC store to see if it was available. It was on the shelf. I don't know for sure the availability across the nation. So like I said, I was a little bit hesitant to put this one out here, but I do think it's somewhat available. I don't think there's a huge markup market in the secondary for the 1792 Bottle and Bond. I know some of the other ones have some significant markups like their High-Rye, but for this one, I think you can either find it pretty available or you could get it online for a very, very good price, close to MSRP. So I thought it was a good addition to this list, and I think you'd be very, very pleased with the purchase of this bottle at sub 50 and put it on your shelf to be able to either drink or share with friends. So that was the last one we had on this list. But with that said, I had one addition because I didn't want to add it to the actual list because it is harder to find in a lot of states. The distribution of this bottle is pretty limited, but growing pretty fast. So before it becomes widely distributed, I wanted to talk about it a little bit. Although I do believe many of you that are watching right now know the bottle and know the distillery, because they've made a huge splash in the bourbon and whiskey industry over the past 3 years or so, 3 to 5 years. So with that said, the next bottle is 13th Colony Small Batch. So 13th Colony is obviously probably most well known for their double oak. That's an annual release at this point and pretty hard to find. It's super limited and allocated in very, very few states. So good luck finding one, but it's a good pour. It just not gonna be something we put on a list like this, but their small batch bourbon is really good. I think it's at $49. It's being distributed to more and more states as we speak. They're based out of Georgia, and I love the whiskeys coming out of Georgia, Mississippi, and places like that because that heat in those areas is really doing something fantastic. I don't know that I want to say that it's aging them faster, but it sure seems like that. And this is somewhere a blend of whiskeys that are between 4 and 6 years. And at 4 and 6 years, I think it tastes like a 6 to 8 year whiskey. And it's $49. So in the bottle, I am a huge fan of the bottle. It's a little frustrating sometimes to put on a shelf because it's so fat. It takes up so much space and it's a little bit awkward. But beyond that, I think it's a really cool bottle. It does give, you know, Old Forester birthday bourbon vibes, but it's a really, really good whiskey. So if it's in your area, if it's easy to find, I'd say go ahead and grab one. Grab this, the rye. If you can find the sour mash, that's a good one as well. And let me know your thoughts. But I think this is a good addition to a list like this if it's available in your area. If it's not, don't stress it. I showed Early Times Bottle and Bond a few minutes ago, or actually at the beginning of the video. That's another good sub 50 bottle that you could replace this with that and be in really good shape. But that's the list. So why does this matter? Because the bourbon market is shifting. For years, brands have trained us to believe that high price equals high quality. But value-focused drinkers are starting to change the game by voting with their wallets. Distilleries that deliver honest quality at fair prices, they're quietly building a cult following. And meanwhile, those unicorn bottles that are collecting dust on your top shelf, they're getting outperformed by what's sitting there at eye level, readily available for half the price. Now, let me be clear, there are expensive bottles that absolutely live up to the hype. I have them, I love them. But those bottles should be the exception, your special occasion pours, not the thing you chase. Because if you only focus on what's exceptional, it kind of becomes all-consuming. And you miss out on what's sitting right in front of you that's absolutely fantastic. The truth can be painful, but it's absolutely liberating. You do not need to spend big to drink well. You just need to know what to look for. These bottles absolutely prove that great bourbon isn't rare, it's just overlooked. Okay, so now it's your turn. What's the best bottle of bourbon you've bought under 50 bucks this year? Drop it in the comments because this list is not even close to exhaustive. I wanted to put so many bottles on this list, but I just don't have the time to do that, nor do you have the attention span to listen to me talk about 100 bottles. But I think if you put it in the comments, we can have a really exhaustive list of what's delivering value in 2025 at under 50 bucks. And if you're still here, hit the subscribe button. I got plenty more coming your way. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.